There's a renewed effort at the University of Michigan to promote diversity and inclusion on the Ann Arbor campus. The university just announced an $85 million plan designed to increase minority enrollment and to make learning more inclusive and effective for diverse groups of students. The 5-year plan will be overseen by the university's first Chief Diversity Officer, Robert Sellers. I'd like to welcome Rob back to American Black Journal.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here.
The last time you were here, we were talking about your history, which I think is a really interesting part of this story. You were a student at the University of Michigan. I believe you were a grad student when I was an undergrad,
yes.
Which was a pretty tumultuous time on campus. There was a lot of demonstration protests by black students in particular, who were concerned about the environment on campus, about the issue of diversity, the numbers then, and how they could be bigger. My memory is that the late 1980s, early 1990s was the largest presence for minority students on campus. Well, now you take this job at a time when those numbers are maybe some of the smallest we've seen.
Well, so I would just disagree with you a little bit in terms of minority students. So It was at that time the largest by far minority group of minority students were African Americans. Yeah. There was a very small number of Latinx students, and a relatively small number in terms of Asian American students. What we've seen over time is those numbers have increased in ways that the African American student numbers have decreased, decreased and then have remained relatively stable post Proposition 2.
Right. Proposition 2, of course, is the provision of our Constitution that now prohibits the university and other public institutions from using race as a factor in their decision making, and it would include admissions. How much of what we've seen in terms of the number drop among African American students has to do with that versus the university maybe not acting as aggressively as it could to counter it?
Well, I think it's been a number of different things. So part of it, there is no doubt that Prop 2 hurt us with African American students. Yeah. Part of that, in fact, we began to see that even before the Supreme Court ruling. The number of applications from African Americans actually went down. I think there was a mistaken sense that the university was actually in support of the end of affirmative action, which was exactly the opposite.
Right, right.
The other thing that has happened is that, unfortunately, issues with regards to our primary source of students over the years, African American students over the years, Detroit, the K-12 system has had some difficulties over that time.
Yeah.
And at the same point in time, I think we as the university didn't do enough. And I think what we are trying to do now is to sort of stop worrying about the factors that we can't control and sort of to go all in and do everything that we can to give everybody an opportunity at the university.
Which is, of course, where you come in, right?
Yep.
This new job, this new effort. Talk about some of the things that you see as real opportunities for the university to try to take advantage of to move the numbers in a different direction.
Well, one program that I'm really excited about is our Wolverine Pathways program, which is a program where we're currently in Southfield and Ypsilanti with plans to come to Detroit in fall of 17. And this is a program where we identify talented students in the 7th grade. There's also a smaller entry point at the 10th grade. Provide them with supplemental educational experiences on Sundays and after schools and through the summer. Yeah. Working also with parents to talk about what it's like to be at the University of Michigan, what should parents do in terms of supporting their kids. Right. Also having the parents themselves work together to help support the program. Working with local teachers in each of those districts to deliver the curricula that we're providing. And then those kids who complete the program, who participate fully within the program, who then apply and are admitted to the university, are guaranteed 4 years of tuition support, as well as all other financial aid that they would be eligible. So I see this program as not only an opportunity in terms of having some impacts in our broader community, but it's very much a recruitment program. My goal is to get every single one of those kids to come to the University of Michigan. To me, that's what we ultimately want.
Let's talk about the climate on campus, not just for black kids, but for all kids. Of course, this week, we've seen some tensions rear their heads about the election itself, and we've seen some incidents where conservative students thought they were being marginalized by some things that the president said, but you've also had minority students talk about open harassment that they've had to deal with in terms of the backlash from the election. How much does that climate need sort of an attention to try to make things better for everybody who goes to school?
Oh, climate is critical. It's not only critical in terms of our recruitment efforts, but more importantly, it's critical in terms of our ultimate mission, which is to educate our students and all of our students. You know, I feel like this is a very difficult and complex time. There are a lot of issues that are swirling around that are getting intertwined and confused.
They all get balled up
and they
together,
get all balled up together, exactly. So, for instance, issues of harassment and threats of physical violence. There's absolutely no place for that, regardless of the context. We don't tolerate that. That's not what we're about at the University of Michigan. At the same point in time, the question of diversity of political thought is absolutely something that we care about. That is something that we're striving for. We believe fundamentally different perspectives, whether it's a function of one's lived experiences or different political ideologies, are all important for us to end up having the strongest education possible and being able to do our part in serving the university. But those two things, you can't have that in the context of harassment and in the context of fear, real fear. And so we've got to find ways to make sure that everyone understands that we can do both. And by doing both, it no way minimizes the importance of the other.
One of the things that I think is really interesting is that feeling among, say, conservative students that they are victimized, quote unquote, which I think if you're a minority student, it comes across as a little offensive because minority students are actually victimized in ways that those students probably can't relate to. And it's hard to, I guess it's hard for you guys to bridge that gap. I mean, there is a perception gap there that's important.
Well, and I think the key is if we can move a bit beyond our individual feelings, let's examine what is physical threats of physical harm, and let's deal with that. Let's deal with feelings of social identity threat. We need to find ways to deal with that. And the way you deal with one is not the same way that you deal with the other. And again, I want to go back to this point. When dealing with one does not mean that you don't care about the other, or we can't do the other. In fact, that we're trying to do the other. I'm very confident in our ability to do both. But in a time like this, with so much passion and fear, and the fear is rooted in real policy possibilities and impacts on individuals' lives, that it's very hard to do things that we normally could do quite well.
Let's talk about the numbers and the numbers going into the future. How feasible do you think it is for the work that you're doing to move those numbers back? And I know at Michigan we've already seen a little bit of a turn back toward higher presence of black students, but should we expect to see those numbers go back, for instance, to when you and I were on campus?
Well, I hope that we do. I mean, my goal, that's what I get up in the morning working to do. I am optimistic. I believe that there are ways. And the main thing that gives me that belief is that, as our president has often said, that while talent is spread equally throughout everywhere, opportunity isn't. And so if we can make sure that we provide opportunity, and that opportunity also means opportunity for the necessary preparation for students, for all students to come to the university, that then naturally the university will look more diverse and will represent that diversity that's
and you can do it, you feel like you can do that without the tool of affirmative action. I mean, you don't have a choice.
Well, I was going to say, it doesn't. It does. In some ways, you know, there's no use crying over spilled milk in that context.
Probably not.
But we're, you know, again, we like to refer to ourselves as the leaders and best, and I have a great deal of confidence in the university taking on big issues, and I'm also very proud of our students and our students' commitment towards these issues. And so, with all of that, I'm ready to take this on.
Okay. All right. Well, good luck to you. At my alma mater, it's important.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We're looking for your help as well.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Finally, all of us here at American Black Journal and Detroit Public Television send our condolences to the family and friends of longtime PBS journalist Gwen Ifill, who passed away after a battle with cancer. Ifill was the host of Washington Week and co-anchor of PBS NewsHour. She was praised by many in the industry for her journalistic integrity and her fairness. Prior to joining PBS, Ifill worked at NBC News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Gwen Ifill was 61 years old. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.